So Terry McAullife, $675,000, goes to Jill McCabe, unheard of candidate. Nobody ever heard of her. She had voted in a Republican primary, happens to be the wife of Andrew McCabe, who was the up-and-coming deputy FBI director. Nobody knew McCabe. She gets almost $700,000. That's a lot of money for a first-time candidate. Governor McAuliffe gave her the money. He recruited her. He had dinner with a husband who was in the FBI. And with Hillary gave money to the PAC. And a lot of Republicans are saying, look, this is just one big scheme to influence the FBI in order to give this money to Jill McCabe to run against Dick Black in a seat that nobody thought they could win anyway. Any truth at all to this, David?
Absolutely no truth to it whatsoever. It's nonsensical. I was involved. I was the recruiting coordinator for the Senate, and we always look for doctors. They make usually wonderful candidates. The money didn't come into this thing until we were seeing how hard Jill McCabe was working. Dick had more than any other Republican senator in Virginia. Dick probably had the highest negatives. And it was a district that we thought we could win. But the money doesn't follow into the race until the polling and the work is put in by people. And Jill put in the work. They put in a campaign. The governor didn't put money up front or anything. And I was involved as intimately as anybody. I had no clue who her husband was. Didn't care who her husband was. This is a woman who started a school up there. She knew everybody from that emergency room where she was the chief. Everybody in the world gets through there, and it was borne out in the end. Look how close she came in a district that was 16 points for Ellie or something. I can't remember all the details, but she came
16 for Romney.
Yeah, so she comes within 5 or 6. It was a great smart play on our part. The governor was all in for our candidates. Jeremy McPike got more money than Jill McCabe did, and he won in Prince William County. And the governor bet heavily on Gary McCollum. It didn't work out, but you go where the numbers tell you, and she was doing a great job. It had nothing to do with her husband. Nobody knew what his future was.
I think the email scandal didn't even break until after she was a candidate. Though,
and look, just so our audience knows, Senator David Marston for the Democrats in the Senate in Virginia was the recruitment chair. So it was his job to recruit the best candidates in order to win, to get the majority back. Right. So, I mean, you were part of recruiting her.
Exactly.
Right, from the inside.
And the way you do recruiting is that you don't do it all by yourself and just come up with these genius picks. You talk to people. And, I talked to Ralph Northam, to people, who do you know in the medical community up there? Who do you know who's a sitting Democrat on the board of supervisors in Loudoun or on the town council in Purcellville? We had gone through several candidates before we ever got to Jill McCabe, and I was delighted that she decided to jump on board. She's a charismatic individual, but her network in that community was what the key was. Just so you're saying the emergency room. It's not just having a practice.
The $675,000 that came after you guys thought she could be competitive.
Yeah, because the negatives on my good friend Dick Black were so high that she was polling well almost right from the start.
But there's only so many opportunities in Virginia though too.
You didn't give $675,000 to Scott.
Look, Dick,
would you give $675,000 to Scott Sorrell? No, thank you.
First of all, can I say a couple things first? One, Dick Black has been targeted every single time he's been on the ballot. All right, so that's the House of Delegates, that's the state Senate, because he has, as Dave said, high negatives, and is very polarizing, and frankly attracts a lot of money in that allows people to get early money from the LGBT community, which gives your campaign early traction and helps you have those poll numbers so that you get targeted.
Right, Bob Marshall's the
same way. So Dick Black has been targeted every single time he's on the ballot. So that's not a new thing. This was not some sort of, Dick Black had been in for 20 years and we suddenly targeted him first time. Second thing is, and I want to jump off of what Dave said here, and I don't want to diss Scott or Dave here, but I might a little bit in saying this. There's sort of, the normal candidates that you get for the Senate in that, they have a professional background, but don't come from whether it's, particularly likable, unlikable careers. There's certain people that cut across that, and they actually outperform in elections. And let me give you the example of that. Ralph Northam. Ralph Northam won in a landslide when he ran for state senate in Norfolk because he was a children's doctor. And it's not to diss Scott the lawyer or Dave the juvenile justice guy. Ralph the children's doctor is more likable than them. Okay, so like when the voters are introduced in 30 seconds, he's likable. And so as Dave said, in terms of recruiting doctors are likable. All right, so you always want to get a doctor if you can. They're non-political and they're likable.
Everybody needs a litigator one day, man.
Look at Siobhan.
Yeah,
Donovan.
but
Scott's
remember,
not likable till you have to hire him.
Look
remember
at
this-
Siobhan Donovan that you guys also tried to recruit as a Democrat, right?
Yeah, I mean, and Saban is a wonderful senator. Yeah, and Saban is a wonderful, a wonderful senator, and I've worked with her, and she's a good person. But you got to remember with Dick Black, he was in a very strong Republican situation in 2005, and we defeated him. So here you're going after somebody with the same negatives he had a number of years ago. And so we got him before. Can you get him again? And that's the way the game's played. And
so then, why would the Wall Street Journal run that piece then, which was basically a hit piece?
It's just irresponsible. It's irresponsible to make those kinds of one little connection there and to try to turn that into something that's terrible.
So did other candidates get more money than her from?
Yeah.
Certainly, Jeremy McPike did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was and at the end of the day, he got the last shots of money because he had the better chance.
I don't want to sound like this is The Sopranos or anything, but if you're going to buy somebody off, you don't buy them off with campaign donations. Okay, like so you bought her off by putting her an ad for her on television, like if they really were gonna put $500,000 into buying somebody off, I don't think it would be through campaign contributions.
And if somebody else could show me where the other viable opportunity was in the state to invest in, I'd like to see it. I mean, there's only so many states that Democrats can be viable in, and that or were 12 months ago, and I'm not really sure what the other race the governor should have put his money in besides that one was.
And we're all big boys and girls, and we can take it, but this went too far. This is a good woman and a man who serves his country. She tried to step forward to run, and to make these kinds of allegations based on absolutely no evidence whatsoever is just it really speaks to where we have gotten in this country, and this was just flat out wrong.
Of the Wall Street Journal to run this piece.
Yes, absolutely. The Wall Street Journal should not have run this. This is something you talk about, and then you say, well, this is maybe there's a wisp of smoke or something. Do you check into it? Sure. But when you just go overhead and said, well, if A, then B, then C, then D, then you have a whole big story created in your own mind, and it's just a terrible thing to do to somebody.
Part of the narrative here, trying to piece this thing together from McAullife, is that there was another candidate in the race that they cleared the field for, a former veteran. I can't think of his name. Starts with an M. Mm-hmm. But look, this happens.
McCollum?
In Loudoun County.
In Loudoun County,
yes.
And he was going to run.
He was a former assistant prosecutor in Loudoun.
And he's a veteran, and then they gave him an appointment to a veterans board, and somehow that was supposed to be part of it. But look, this happens all the time, right? You clear fields for people to save money in a primary, and then if McAuliffe gets involved and there's hurt feelings, he puts them on the veterans board.
He graciously stepped aside and so hey, but I would like to serve, and I'm a veteran, and what have you. So
McAuliffe put him on a board.
Well, of course, he was a good Democrat.
Politics.
You put Democrats on boards when you're a Democratic governor.
He demonstrated he was a team player. He played ball.
He did, and it was tough. It really was for him. But we had to go with what the polling told us.
I mean, look. First of all, you were there, David, right? You were in charge of recruitment, right? So you were there. So you were part of the recruiter. When I looked at this, people write this stuff. They're not from the area, right? So they don't understand it. Nobody covers this thing like we do, right? So, I was very involved in this. You're right. When you looked at the opportunities for you guys to take the Senate over, you were not going to beat Wagner. I don't care how much money you put in with that guy. Was a horrible candidate. You were not going to beat Wagner. And so you had two shots, the Sturtevant seat and Dick, and that's it. That's really all, in my mind, you guys had.
Speaking of people that got more money, by the way, Dan Gecker.
Yeah, I mean, so
Gilfillis
got
is
more money.
third, and probably
McPike got more money.
Yeah, and
so
and McCollum, his race, kind of ran into a speed bump, over some of that military credentialing stuff, and what
he
have
was
you.
going to get beat anyway.
So the money moves where the numbers tell
he
you
was
to
a
move
horrible
it.
candidate, by the way, just so you know, horrible candidate. But look, horrible. I would not recruit him again if I were you.
Well, I thought he did a remarkable job in raising money. And,
he got killed. He spent all that money. Got killed. He was
I understand.
Horrible.
It is, a lot of people.
He ran into the
lose
Wagner
elections.
buzzsaw, baby.
Yeah, well, he ran into Virginia Beach. It's still a Republican. It's in a 30% turnout election. Virginia Beach is still very Republican.
Don't be counting Wagner out. I've been telling you guys, don't count him out. Anyway, look, I'm going to go around the table very fast. I'm going to start with Ben. This whole thing with McCabe, do you think there's anything there?
No.
David?
Absolutely not.
Scott? All right. I don't either. I don't think there's anything there. When I read the piece, I told Ann immediately I thought it was ridiculous just because I covered it and I knew why you gave her the money. And even when you look at the timelines, but I'm with Ben. I mean, you're not going to influence somebody because you're giving them money to run a Senate race where they got to work like 90,000 hours a week and knock on 1,000 doors and do all that. And then you buy TV ads for them. And you gave more money to Dan Decker, who was a worse candidate. You gave a lot of money to McCollum in Virginia Beach, who was a horrible candidate. And then you gave money to
Jeremy
McPike, who was a great candidate, by the way. And I've not been out with McCabe. I interviewed her on my show one time. She certainly seemed like she was a very capable candidate. So I think it's nonsense. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
She was as good as you're ever going to get in terms of somebody who's not held elective office before.
Yeah, and I really think that Terry McAuliffe, I don't think he was going around trying to figure out who was somebody's wife. I think, he was desperate to win the Senate back, and I think that's what his...
I'm anxious to talk about this tomorrow when we're doing this from Dick Black.
That's
He's
why
been
we're
pushing
going
this
there.
narrative.
That's
He's
why
been
we're going
pushing
there.
this narrative, and it's absurd because, as we said, Dick Black has been targeted every race, and the reason he's targeted is he makes controversial comments on the Senate floor. I remember when he was a delegate, he said something like, you can't have rape if you're married. He passed out little fake plastic fetuses when he was in the House of Delegates. I mean, so this is a guy that gets targeted. When you do that kind of behavior, you get targeted every time because people think they can beat you.
Well, I think Jill McCabe might have ties to Syria or something.
Well, now, that was a low blow against Dick. Now, Dick and I are on the same page on that. Both Dick and I believe that President Assad was targeted. He should be our ally. He represented no strategic threat to the United States. We never should have gotten involved in that. But I know you Democrats, you love, along with the neocons, you love to get involved in these wars so all your friends up here in Northern Virginia can make hundreds of millions of dollars in their contracts and everything else. Meantime, our kids come home dead. I know that's your deal. I went out of these wars, and so with that one,
and Barack Obama has kept us out of that.
Okay, can I just say about this? I mean, Assad is not a U.S. ally, and
he should be an ally.
John,
we have no strategic interest in Syria.
Syria has been funding terrorism efforts in Israel for decades. Okay, that's why they're not an ally. I don't know where else they fall in the Middle East ideological scale. I can tell you that, the Israeli-Syrian border has had multiple Israeli soldiers murdered on from snipers. They have funded terrorism in Israel. That is why they are not a U.S. ally. Okay, Israel is a U.S. ally. Countries that fund terrorism across the border in Israel are not U.S. allies. So you can say whatever you want about the policy over there and where he is with Iraq, Iran. They're all rivals, but we don't have allies that fund terrorism in Israel, and that's one of the reasons why we're allies with Egypt and Saudi Arabia and other countries that are not actively funding terrorism, like Syria and Iran.
Well, so 99% of the wars worldwide have been started by men. Get a woman in office.
Well, I just went out of these wars, and I don't want us trying to change regimes, and we've got these neocons that basically want to be masters of the universe, and they undermine governments, and the whole thing is ridiculous.
We can't teach other countries how to be democracies.
But look, I'm the Republican. I was against Iraq 1, Iraq 2, Iraq 3. I was against all of them because nothing good was ever going to come out of it. But if you really want to place blame, it goes back to George Bush 1. Because why we ever got involved in defending Kuwait, which
Oil.
we had no strategic alliance with. They were not part of NATO. That was the Saudis' issue. He started us getting involved in this thing. We had no business being there. I was opposed to that. They threw me out of the Republican Party back then. They probably should have kept me out. They'd be better off. We're done here at Scott Survell World Headquarters. And every day that goes by now, a day closer to a Trump victory.